Hi, I'm Kinkas and I'm a synth DIY guy. Welcome to today's video about the Cycle 5 Vari-Wave Oscillator by Joranalogue. This is my Jorana box over here. Recently I did a video about the Collide 4 where I already gave you a little cameo, little preview of the Cycle 5. We used it in that video. But now we're going to focus on the Cycle 5 itself. Joranalogue already has a really awesome full-featured analog VCO, which is the Generate 3. I have two of them right here. But they thought that it would be really nice to have something smaller and super functional with some different kinds of features. So they made the Cycle 5, which I really love. It's a really wonderful little oscillator. So without further ado, check it out. So here's the triangle wave, right? Now this one, instead of having a wide coarse adjustment, it has an octave switch over here. So you have a switch for audio and low, so you can use it as an LFO in the low position here, and you can use it as a VCO, and you skip octaves here, right? And you do have a fine adjustment over here, so you can fine tune it with whatever else you're doing. There's also a Vari-Wave knob over here, right? So there's a Vari-Wave output where you will see that Vari-Wave. You can hear how different you can get it to sound, right? And there's CV input for that as well. So I could send any kind of modulation. Why don't we have Generate 3 in low mode here. So I can take the triangle, which is the core, take that to the Vari input over here. All right, and I can center this. Now this is a little bit too extreme, right? So why don't we use an attenuator? Hold on, let me turn this down a little bit while I use an attenuator. I have the Select 2 here. We can use the Select 2 as an attenuator or offset or whatever else we might need. So I'm going to send that to the Vari input over here. Turn the volume back up. Right, so here's kind of a drone happening. Super cool. Just by varying the waveform, right? And I can center that variation with the Vari-Wave knob over here. Very cool. Now if I want to have a coarse knob, I can use the other channel, the Select 2 here, just as a generator, just as a voltage generator or with variable control. So this will become like an offset. I can put that in the volt per octave. It has 2 volt per octave inputs here, which can be super useful. It's like a precision adder, right? I can send, for example, a sequence to one of them and then a keyboard to the other, and then I can transpose the sequence by using the keyboard. By just pressing a different key on the keyboard, it'll transpose the entire sequence up or down, right? So why don't I exemplify that? I'm using Select 2 here as 1 volt per octave control, right? Super nice. And again, I can just skip octaves if I want by using the octave switch over here. Has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 positions, right? Super well in tune. And you can also jump up a fifth, which is really cool. If you have 2 of these, for example, and you have them in unison or in octaves, and then all of a sudden you want to do kind of like a power chord sound, you can really quickly just jump up to the fifth, to the perfect fifth from the pitch that you're in initially, right? So why don't we use a sequencer, right? I have the step 8 in this box. I'm going to create a clock with the contour 1, put it in loop, take the rise output, and I might need that clock for something else, so I'm going to use a link to multiple here in order to be able to send that clock to multiple destinations. The first destination is going to be step input of the step 8. I can make it a little bit slower here, and now we can send the scan output of the step 8 over to the second volt per octave input of my Cycle 5. Very cool. cool. And the very wave, like at a certain point it becomes silent, so you have to be careful with your ranges here. Cool. I can even audio rate modulate that vary output. It sounds really cool. Kind of sounds like a ring modulator. Let me use my right hand so you can see the modules. Very cool. But let's go back to using it as an LFO. This thing sounds so nice. Alright, why don't we create like a more traditional voice with a little bit of silence. So instead of sending it very wave output all the way straight into my output module, I'm going to send it into a channel of the Morph 4, which does a bunch of things, but one of them is a simple VCA, if I want it to be. So now I have a manual control, if I want to, of the VCA here, but we're going to use, remember I split the clock, so that means I can use another output of that clock to trigger another contour 1, which is an envelope generator. It's a slope generator, function limiter, or slew limiter, but right now I'm going to be using it as an envelope generator, and I'm going to put it in the level input here of our Morph 4, and I can there we go. So this is more like more traditional kind of a voice, right? Why don't we make it a little bit slower and let that envelope ring out a little longer. So wow, this thing is sounding super nice. Okay, why don't we make why don't we use the Cycle 5 now as one oscillator of 2 in the patch. So we're going to use the second generate 3 in audio rate, right? And we're going to send its full output to the filter 8, right? Input over here. And then we're going to send the filter 8 low pass filter output number 4, which is the 24 dB per octave output. Let's send that to another input of Morph 4. Right, and then we're going to send that second output of Morph 4, well now to the right side of my transmit 2 so that it's in stereo, right? And that envelope generator output, we're going to split that too. So I have another link 2 over here, and I can send one output to that first voice level, and then the other one to the second voice level output as well. We need to open up the filter, right? Put it in audio rate, turn on the resonance, and there we go. Looks like this cable wasn't plugged in all the way here. So the scan output from the step 8, which is going into Cycle 5, we need to also split that. So I'm using very long cables for all this. I got like the same length cable for everything. So that's why things are looking a little crazy here. But, you know, let me just, in fact, I've run out of cables. So I'm going to send one to the volt per octave input of the Cycle 5. And then I'm going to reach for some more cables over here. Got the white ones now. These are the Joranalogue cables, by the way. They're excellent quality, studio grade cables that I'm loving to use. So we're going to take our second volt per octave output from the step 8 and send that to the volt per octave input of our generate 3, right? Here we go. Now we can turn the Cycle 5 back on. Right. And I'm doing this to show you how cool these features are with, for example, the 5th. So if I tune, all right, let's hold the stop the loop here for a second and make the contour 1 loop, just so we have the a more constant sound here, right? Just so we can tune the oscillators. So I'm going to tune the Generate 3. Right. So now I can change the Cycle 5 octave relative to the Generate 3, and that gives you a different kind of a sound. So why don't we go back to triggering our sequence. I kind of like varying the contour 1 fall rate randomly, so I'm going to use an output of orbit 3 here, which is our chaos generator. I'm going to send that to the fall rate of our envelope generator, just to create a little bit more variation. That's nice. And here's we can use another output of our Generate 3 that's acting as an LFO to modulate the frequency of the filter, the exponential FM here. That gives us some timbral variation that is somewhat related to the variation of the vari-wave output here on the Cycle 5, right? Now check this out. Right now we're in unison roughly, right? I can change the octave. So now we have octaves. I can go up an octave still, right? Or I can go back, and now I can quickly change. Let's flip the fifth, up a fifth switch, and we'll get that power chord kind of a sound. Check it out. This is a cool performance feature, right? You're in the middle of your sequence and you just want to have this interesting variation where instead of the notes being the same, or your sequences being in unison, you can go up a fifth. Very cool. So when we put that Generate 3 back in audio rate again and do that ring mod effect, and now we're doing it to both the filter and the Cycle 5 vari-wave as well. Very cool. Alright, let's go back to the LFO here. Now check this out. We're going to change the output of our Cycle 5. We're going to go to this other output that is the pulse width output. Now, instead of this wider variation from sine wave all the way to saw, we're only getting a pulse variation. So let me turn down the Generate 3 so we can hear. See, this is the pulse wave output of the Cycle 5. So the vari CV input also affects the pulse width. Right. Sorry, this is in mono right now. Yeah, I'm going to remove the cable from the right there so we can hear it in mono. Right, so we have the pulse width modulation output, we have the vari output, we also have a saw wave output. Now this one will not be affected by the vari wave, see? I can turn the vari wave knob any way I want, and that's just going to be a saw wave no matter what. Same thing with this sine wave. Ooh, listen to that sine wave. So nice. You know what? Why don't I send that LFO that we're sending to the vari, we'll send it to the reset here. Here we go. I just needed it to be louder. I just turned it up on select to here. So right, so right now I have the I'm sending Generate 3 here to the reset, and it's affecting the saw wave. It also affects the pulse width. Sounds cool. And finally, the sine wave. So yeah, so it's got that reset input that can be also interesting and useful to play with. This is our coarse control over here. So we're going to remove the coarse control because I'm going to do FM now. Right, so now we have our cycle 5 sine wave reacting to the sequence, to the step 8 sequence. And we're going to use the second volt per octave input as an exponential input for exponential frequency modulation coming from generate 3 in audio rate. Sounds so nice. Right, so why don't we send another output of the step 8 sequencer, right? And that's in this multiple over here. I'm going to send my last output to the generate 3 so that it's also receiving the same sequence, right? So now we get that classic FM kind of sound. And I can change the octave here on the cycle 5 and get very different sounds. Very cool. I can also jump that fifth, right? Bring it back and change the generate 3 center pitch here. Let's jump that fifth again. Bring it back. Change the octave. This thing sounds really nice. And it's so tiny. It's 6 HP, I think. And of course, you can also use it as a low frequency oscillator. So if I were to unplug it and plug the generate 3 that's going through the filter, right? And now let's go back to using the generate 3 as an LFO. Now we could use a cycle 5 as an LFO, right? So instead of the generate 3, I'm going to send the cycle 5 vary output, and we're going to put it in low mode here. And now we're using it as a modulation source, right? And we can send, let's make it a little chaotic. So we're going to remove the 2 volt per octave controls here. So this right now it's, let's make it a little more extreme here. Turn up the exponential FM on filter 8. And now we're going to use orbit 3, which are chaotic outputs. We're going to send one to the vary input here. So now we're varying the type of waveform from our cycle 5. Listen to that, that's super cool. So it's an LFO with the waveform varying wildly and chaotically based on the voltage output from orbit 3. And now we can do the same with the frequency. We'll get another output of the orbit 3 and send it to one of the volt per octave inputs of cycle 5. Now let's turn down the frequency of the orbit 3 so that the voltages are changing more slowly. Super cool. What a fun module. Simple, right? Unusually simple for Joranalogue, I would say. Straightforward. Very easy one to understand and use. We go up to 5th again, change the octave here. You immediately get faster moving LFO if you want to. And just a really great addition to the system. I'm loving having it in my Joranalogue box. Frees up one of my Generate 3s to use as an LFO, or also sometimes I use one of the Generate 3s as an LFO, and now I could use both Generate 3s as audio oscillators if I want to, and use an LFO from the Cycle 5. Even though I could also use any of my Contour 1s as an LFO, and even the Filter 8. A wealth of LFOs in this system. The Orbit 3 is also a kind of a chaotic LFO. It's just nice, small footprint module to add a lot of functionality to your system, be it a full Joranalogue system or not. Just another great invention by my friend Joran. Alright, so that's it. This has been a short introduction to some of the cool things that you can do with Cycle 5. I hope you liked the video. I hope you will hit like and subscribe to the channel. Check out some more material. There's a bit of a mess going on now because I'm focusing on both bass, guitar, and synthesizers, and publishing my music as a composer. So I apologize for that. If things get confusing, just go into a playlist that interests you more out of any of these subject matters. Thank you to all my Patreons, all the subscribers, and everybody who's watching. See you soon, and stay noisy.